people who have raised a lot of money for him. And they are adamant that what we saw the other night, the Joe Biden we saw, is not a one-off, that there have been 15, 20 occasions in the last year and a half when the president has appeared somewhat as he did in that horror show.
Over on CNN, where they don't know what to do now because they've been lying and covering up for Joe Biden for so long. And now suddenly we see with our own very eyes exactly where this guy's been. Now, listen, we've been talking about it for years. We know that he's got mashed potatoes for brains. We know that he's had 2 brain surgeries. We know that at his advanced age, he can't put sentences together, words together. He can't keep and maintain a thought. Physically, he can't go down staircases without assistance. He can't walk across the South Lawn without assistance. And frankly, if you scroll through the videos that we've posted over the last several months, we don't think he can go to most events without actually, well, how do I put it? Pooping his pants. So we've known this for a while. Now the media can't hide it anymore, which brings us to Pulitzer Prize winning legendary Watergate journalist Carl Bernstein, whose major claim to fame from 1974 is that Dustin Hoffman played him in a movie with Robert Redford. Honestly, Carl, it's been downhill since then. How downhill is it? Well, look at him. Does that look anything like Dustin Hoffman to you? And he's stuck with going on CNN now for the rest of his career, which is just sad. Seriously, just tell me to hang it up if I ever get to that point. Anyway, Carl Bernstein is addressing what we've all seen and the reality of our president's situation right now. And he's not happy because, well, as I mentioned, he's a journalist, which of course means he's a Democrat. He's on their side. So take it away, Carl.
Journalist. So, Carl, according to the people you've been talking to, what are you hearing?
Well, these are people, several of them, who are very close to President Biden, who love him, have supported him, and been among them are some people who have raised a lot of money for him. And they are adamant that what we saw the other night, the Joe Biden we saw, is not a one-off, that there have been 15, 20 occasions in the last year and a half when the president has appeared somewhat as he did in that horror show that we witnessed. And what's so significant is the people that this is coming from, and also how many people around the president are aware of such incidents, including some reporters, incidentally, who have witnessed some of them. But here we see tonight, as these people say, President Biden at his absolute best, and yet these people who have supported him, loved him, campaigned for him, see him often, say that in the last 6 months particularly, there has been a marked incidence of cognitive decline and physical infirmity.
What I wonder about...
All right, we'll let you finish there, Anderson, in a second, but he's talking about here we see Joe Biden at his absolute best. His absolute best. Did you see his remarks yesterday from the White House about the Supreme Court ruling? That was Joe Biden at his absolute best. They throw orange makeup on him. I think they were going for burnt umber to really grasp his rage and convey it to the audience. He shuffled out to the podium. He read a teleprompter for 4, count them, 1, 2, 3, 4 minutes. Part of the time he was mispronouncing things and incoherent. At one point he read a quote from Sonia Sotomayor and then actually read out loud what was on the teleprompter. He said, end quote. Don't think he was supposed to say that part out loud. And then, without taking any questions from anyone, he turned around and shuffled off the screen again. It was, I mean, he made it through, but it was 4 minutes. And that's Joe Biden at his absolute best. But let's summarize what Carl Bernstein just told you for a minute. Of course, he's an award-winning, Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist. He is on the Mount Rushmore of American journalism because of Watergate, because, you know, he brought down a Republican president. And he just told you that based on his reporting, he's now heard from sources that this is not a one-off, and this has been going on for months, if not years. Now, you may look at that and say, wow, that's some great reporting. He saw what happened on Thursday, and then he called some sources, and he got this information that this keeps happening, and it's been happening. Well, no, that's not great reporting, because if he were a great reporter, he would have used his own eyes to observe that this has been happening, and he would have asked those sources last year or 2 years ago when we all saw it happening. But he ignored it. He didn't want to know. He didn't ask any of his sources or questions. Did you also pick up one of these other things where it's been witnessed by many people, including reporters, over the last few months? You picked up on that, right? Real fast.
Did in that horror show that we witnessed. And what's so significant is the people that this is coming from, and also how many people around the president are aware of such incidents, including some reporters, incidentally, who have witnessed some of them.
Have those reporters written about this? Have these reporters run to a microphone or in camera to talk about what they just saw? I want to know who these reporters are, because what Carl Bernstein, Pulitzer Prize winning Mount Rushmore legend of American journalism, just conveyed to you is, number one, he never bothered over the last 3.5 years to pick up the phone and call any of his sources and saying, so is the president okay? Everything all right over there? Have you heard anything? Have you seen anything? It wasn't until Thursday that it occurred to him to do that. And number two, he's acknowledging that other reporters and journalists have seen these things going on and they've kept their mouth shut. They've lied. They've covered it up. They're part of the problem. It's why Andrew Breitbart coined the phrase the Democrat media complex, because, well, they work together. All right, take it away, Anderson.
About is the people who were, working with him at Camp David, allegedly in this intensive debate prep, if there were concerns there about this, and I don't know if you have got any word about that, but how anybody involved in that debate prep, I mean, didn't anybody see something was amiss?
The debate prep was supervised by Ron Klain, who has been with President Biden for many years. And people I've talked to have all been to Ron Klain in the last year to say, we have a problem. We have a problem such as we saw the other night, that there have been numerous instances where the president has lost his train of thought, can't pick it up again. There was a fundraiser at which he started at the podium, and then he became very stiff, according to the people there, as if it were almost a kind of rigor mortis.
This was reported allegedly in June of 2020.
This was June of, this was a year ago, almost exactly, at the old Four Seasons restaurant on Park Avenue. And he became very stiff, and a chair had to be brought for him to do the latter part of the event. I think that what these folks are saying and have been saying for a while is, yes, he's great when we see him, as we have tonight, but he also has these inexplicable moments that we're very concerned about. And you, Ron Klain, and the First Family, we need to talk about this. And they've been pushed back repeatedly whenever it's been brought up.
And did your sources tell you about topics he's particularly engaged in, or are there?
Not only, and it's not just these same people. There is no question. I have heard for 2 years how sharp Joe Biden is in his national security meetings. He has special briefing books on Ukraine, on the situation in Gaza, that go down into very detailed military reports. He has an absolute command of the facts. He's sharp as can be. You see the evidence of his being the chairman of the Foreign Relations Committee in the Senate, of his work as vice president on foreign relations. So we're clearly dealing with two sets of one person. And it really needs to be explored, according to the people I'm talking to. And I think an awful lot of major Democrats believe this, including some who have made statements to the contrary. But this is a problem that's not going to go away unless it's explicable. Does this mean doctors' reports? I mean, obviously, it'd be great if we could have real doctors' reports from both candidates. Well, that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
No, well, actually, we have had doctors' reports from both candidates, because when he was president of the United States, when Donald Trump was not displaying anything even slightly close to what you're seeing from Joe Biden right now, he actually, under pressure from reporters and journalists who actually do their job when there's a Republican in the White House, he actually took his cognitive test. And then his personal physician came out and answered questions at a press briefing until there were no more questions to be answered. And so spare me your false equivocation here, Carl Bernstein, but we actually have seen that, and we haven't even come close to seeing that from Joe Biden. In fact, yesterday, Karine Jean-Pierre, at her press briefing, she was specifically asked whether Joe Biden will take a cognitive test, which seems like a pretty fair question to ask after the events of the last several days. And you would think Karine Jean-Pierre would be prepared for a very detailed, thorough, and fact-based answer to that. You would think that. You would be wrong, but you would think that.
What do you think about the idea of taking that kind of a test? I mean, look, and I talked about this last week too on I believe on Friday. I have known this president since 2009. He is not just my boss, but, he's also a mentor to me, and I spent sometimes countless hours with him, whether it's in the Oval Office, whether it's on the road. And I believe, for me, you're asking me my personal opinion, he is sharp. He is on top of things. When we have
Hold on. Well, if you're asking me my personal opinion, no, actually, we're not. We're not asking your opinion. You're the press secretary. You're supposed to ask questions on behalf of the administration through us, the reporters, who were supposed to be asking questions that the American people would like to ask, but they're not allowed to be in this room. So we're going to ask on their behalf. And the question on the table is, will the president, or should the president, take a cognitive test? That's all. That's the question. We're not asking your opinion. So that she immediately answers a question that wasn't asked. So, thank God. We'll never know if the president will take a cognitive test or will agree to take a cognitive test. But what we do know is Karine Jean-Pierre, his employee's opinion of how sharp he is. He's super sharp, everybody. Because, if I say otherwise and he ends up, getting 25th Amendmented, I'll be out of a job.
Hey, Larry, I just need to step in and correct you. This clip is not from yesterday's briefing. This is a flashback from February.
Oh, dude, I'm so sorry. Thank you for letting me know that. Was this labeled as a flashback? I don't think it was. How else was I supposed to? Oh, it does say in February, KJP assured us. Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. Record corrected, unlike what you see on CNN and MSNBC. But again, and by the way, that's even more telling, because clearly in February, gosh, what happened in February that caused people to ask if he'll take a cognitive test? I mean, they're all acting like this is, I can't believe what we're seeing right now. This guy has been so sharp. Oh, it was after the Robert Hur report, of course. The Robert Hur report that showed that, according to the U.S. Attorney Robert Hur, who investigated and deposed Joe Biden, he did not have the mental capacity to be able to answer questions in front of a jury and stand trial for his illegal handling of classified documents. So, of course, reporters said, will he take a cognitive test? So let's watch her pivot one more time to, if you're asking my opinion, which of course we're not.
You're asking me my personal opinion.
No.
He is sharp. He is on top of things. When we have meetings with him, with his staff, he's constantly pushing us, trying to get more information. And so that has been my experience with this president. Anything else outside of that? I just shared with you what Dr. O'Connor said to me.
Yeah, Dr. O'Connor, who we're not allowed to talk to. That's no relation, by the way, Dr. Kevin O'Connor. I do have a brother, Kevin, coincidentally. He's not a doctor, and he's certainly not the doctor they're talking about here. Okay, so what do Democrats do? Right? They've got two paths here. They can either, confirm what we've all seen. Understand what the media and what Democrats are asking you to do right now. They're basically, their entire line, and this has been their line for the last 4 or 5 years, has been, don't believe what you see. Don't believe what you hear. Don't believe what you obviously can observe. The conclusion you're reaching, based on all the facts that you witnessed personally, the conclusion is wrong. And we're going to tell you otherwise. And if you challenge us and you want us to present evidence to prove that your observation is wrong, we don't have any. We're just going to tell you, trust us. That's their message to you right now. And so where do they go? What do they do? Right? What choice do they have? Well, if you're Jennifer Granholm and you're the Secretary of Energy, and you were born in Canada, so you can't run for president. So that's pretty much it for you, unless you want to run for Senate in Michigan. You gaslight. You lie. you do, well, this, what she did on local television.
Any talk of him pulling out among the inner circle?
No, he is moving forward, and that inner circle sees him every day, including his family.
How often do you see him? Do you have personal?
Well, again,
interaction with him?
I'm here in my personal capacity, so I can't really talk about what but I can tell you this. Everybody who is saying he should be running again knows and sees the president on a daily basis. And so people, I mean, going forward, he's got to prove, right, that he's up to it. And he started that on Friday. He continued that on Saturday, and he's going to continue it going forward.
Did you catch that? No, wow, of course, there's not even a discussion amongst the cabinet or inner circle whether we're going to move forward. Of course, we're moving forward with Joe Biden. He's sharp. He's at the top of his game. We get to see it all the time. Really? How often do you see him? I can't get into that.
Any talk of him pulling out among the inner circle?
No, he is moving forward, and that inner circle sees him every day, including his family.
How often do you see him? Do you have personal?
Well, again,
interaction with him?
I'm here in my personal capacity, so I can't really talk about but I can tell you this.
Wait, did someone put together the logical reasoning behind that? Oh, I'm here in my personal capacity, so I can't talk to you about what I see behind closed doors with the president. Wait, so if you were here in your official capacity, you would be able to do that? It makes no sense. This is just gobbledygook. It's word salad to try to distract you. What you just saw is what I'm calling the Principal Skinner approach to explaining Joe Biden's behavior. The Principal Skinner approach, specifically the famous scene with steamed hams and the Aurora Borealis. When the oven is on fire and Superintendent Chalmers sees that it's on fire, he sees the flames coming from the kitchen, and Principal Skinner has to lie and explain it away. And so, of course, I'd play you the clip, but you know we'd get hit with the copyright. So Superintendent Chaucer, is it Chaucer? I think it's Chaucer, says, good Lord, what's happening in the kitchen? And Principal Skinner, thinking quickly, says, oh, the Aurora Borealis? And the superintendent says, Aurora Borealis, at this time of year, in this part of the country, exclusively centralized in your kitchen. And Principal Skinner says, yes. And the superintendent says, may I see them? And Principal Skinner says, no. And that's what you just saw from Jennifer Granholm. President Biden is at the top of his game. What you saw Thursday night is absolutely fictitious. It's false. What you saw, you shouldn't believe. It was a one-off. He had a bad night. He's at the top of his game. He's sharp as a tack. He's the most sharpest person I've ever been around. Really? Can you tell us about what you witnessed firsthand? Can we see any of the evidence? No. Aurora Borealis. That's what that is. So where do they go? What do they do? Do they actually go with the truth and try to maintain some level of last vestiges of integrity and believability and accountability? Or do they just lie like you just saw from Jennifer Granholm and Karine Jean-Pierre and everybody else in the administration? Well, Jake Tapper last night, shockingly on CNN, Jake Tapper shockingly decided to try to maintain whatever last vestiges of integrity he had. I don't know if there's anything left, but he's made his call because he was in the room that night. He saw it firsthand, not even through the lens. He was sitting 10 feet away from Joe Biden. And here's what Jake did yesterday.
In an attempt to reassure voters about his fitness for office, Biden campaign chair Jan O'Malley Dillon holding a call with party leaders earlier today, telling them this too shall pass. There is a discernible pattern of Democratic officials seemingly trying to convince you, the public, to not believe what you saw and what you heard with your eyes and with your ears on Thursday night.
What I've been able to do with the with the COVID, with dealing with everything we have to do with. Look, if we finally beat Medicare, the total initiative relative to what we're going to do with more Border Patrol and more asylum officers.
President Trump?
I really don't know what he said at the end of that sentence. I don't think he knows what he said either.
Democratic officials have tried to spin this in many ways. They said President Biden just had a cold. They said it was just one off night, akin to when President Obama in 2012 was rusty and seemed a little huffy.
But behind the scenes, make no mistake, most Democratic officials witnessed the same shocking spectacle that you did. The difficulty that the presumptive Democratic nominee, the current president of the United States, had just articulating his basic thoughts during the 90 minutes of the debate.
Now, of course, Jake Tapper, as usual, is getting kudos from people, including conservatives or Republicans. That's right, Jake. Thank you for having a little bit of integrity. Let's just pump the brakes on that for a minute. Jake continues to be an apparatchik. He's still doing the water carrying for the Democrats. It's just that he is moving forward now with the reality that the best thing for Democrats is to dump Joe Biden. And so he's sort of leading the way on that. Just so you know, he's also positioning himself just in case Donald Trump is the president this November, despite his best efforts and his fellow party members' best efforts. He's positioning himself to be the man with integrity in the room. Hey, I just call balls and strikes, man. You know, I'm even-handed either way. Remember, I called out Joe Biden. I called him out. And so if I'm critical of Trump, I'm doing it on both sides. I'm an equal opportunity critic here, okay? No, sorry. Throwing a flag on that one, pal. You've seen this for the last 3.5 years. What you just said right now, you could have said 3 months into this presidency. Hell, you could have said it during the campaign in 2020, but you didn't because, well, you had an election to win. So as Democrats and the media melt down before our eyes and collapse under the weight of their own lies and their own cover-up and their own distractions because they wanted to prop up their guy, it's entertaining at the very least to watch them now twist themselves into knots and figure out which path to take. Do we acknowledge the reality of what's going on that everybody sees, or do we continue the lie and continue the charade? And, well, you just saw pretty good examples of both sides sort of choosing their path. The sad thing is that our country is squeezed in the middle of those two paths, and we, of course, deserve better.